What's up, kids? Peter from Panda here. Hey, ordered myself these One Source individual flameless ration heaters. You have to order them in a package, and I did. They're pretty expensive. I mean, for ration heaters, you know, $3 or $4 a piece. I want to say. I think you have to get 10 for $30 something. Let's call it that. I wanted to just try them out, and a couple of things that I wanted to try and kind of differentiate or kind of identify differences between kind of these standard mil-spec MRE heaters, which you're probably familiar with, and then another heater that I can't find right now, but they come in the yellow packages, and you may have seen them, and they kind of come in the civilian MREs. And one of the issues with those is that they actually come with a little package of water, but it's like a saline solution. It's like a salt water, because those heaters don't work with just regular tap water, kind of unsalted water. So my issue with those is that, yes, you get the heater package and you get the little saltwater package, but for me, for real true versatility in a survival situation, that's not great, because if you lose the water package, presumably you could create your own saline solution with salt water. But I like having kind of everything in the simplest form possible, and being able to have a ration heater that just works with regular water, because you're going to be able to find that in a lot of places, is really important. So these two do, and so that was kind of intriguing. A couple of things that I want to point out here before we get into the demo of how well it works is that you can see this MRE heater, which, if you're familiar with these, work fantastic. It is way small. It is way bigger. The MRE heater is, or the mil-spec MRE heater is almost like a third narrower and much shorter. So, probably a third shorter too. The good thing about that is that you can package these things up, and they're very light. But they only get to 100 plus degrees, about 110, let's call it, degrees. And so you're not cooking with them, you're heating with them. So anything you're going to eat has to be heated. Now, in those mil-spec MREs, you do get kind of a food pouch that is cooked food. You can eat it cold, but it's just kind of nice to heat it up. So first things first, this doesn't cook, it heats. This sucker, though, gets it to over 200 degrees, so it almost gets to basically boiling temperature. And you actually can, you could cook, I suppose, something at 100 degrees, but this gets almost twice as hot, so you can actually cook it. The size of this bag is interesting because it also allows you to put more into it. Now, because it's only going to cook for maybe, let's call it 12 minutes, I think is what they advertise, you need stuff that's going to finish cooking in that time span. So having boiling hot water temperatures for 12 minutes is a pretty good amount of time, but you're certainly not going to be able to cook things that are really thick or overly hearty, etc., etc. The big bag, though, gives you some other opportunities to cook. Now, the other thing that I can tell you is that once you open the mil-spec heaters up, you kind of just roll them over. You put the food in, you kind of put it back in the cardboard bag that it comes in to cook. These One Source heaters have a Ziploc top. So it's cool here. You tear this out, take out the heater pouch, you put the water in the heater pouch back in, and you can just Ziploc the bag up. And so you can actually kind of have the whole thing open, laying down or propped up to cook. There is also a hole that goes all the way through there. You can see it right there. And that's where it'll vent steam out. I was a little curious about how they were doing that because, especially with the Ziploc top, it's going to be airtight, and I thought the bag would just blow up. So it doesn't. You want to keep or be aware of where this hole is and what it's up against, and when you touch it, that hot steam is going to burn you, and it can burn you pretty badly. So just be cognizant of where that sucker is. The other big difference here is that I'm going to open this up and pull out the heating element. Heating element, while not super big, is not to be eaten, certainly. I think it's kind of magnesium shavings or something like that. You also don't want to drink the water that this gets in contact, and you don't want to let this water get in direct contact with your food either. So, but read the instructions. Don't you have to absolve me of any information or instruction that this may be lacking in your use. You tear this sucker open. The difference is in the heater and the MRE specs are unpackaged. So as soon as you open this up, you can pour water right into it, and these things will absorb and start heating up right away. This you have to tear open to expose the heating element and put it back in the bag. I don't know that I would use this bag for anything like holding water or anything like that because it's been in contact with the heating element. So you just want to stay safe as much as possible. So you've got that sucker. All right. So that's the big difference. Now, a couple of things that I wanted to point out here in what we're going to try is you could presumably take something like this. This Armor chili with beans. It's a package. I think this is cooked. It's kind of like a canned soup. And you could cook it with either one of these, you know, the mil-spec or the this One Source, because it's going to fit into there. And as you are familiar with the mil-spec MREs, this is kind of what you get. These kind of pouch, kind of like those tuna packages. These are great because they're not very heavy. They're pretty flexible. They're flat-ish. You can pack a lot of them. I really like these. I have no doubt that this one would work great in this One Source. Sorry. In this One Source cooker as well. The big question I always have is how much cooking can you really do with this? Like I said, you can't do a lot with this one. I actually have a chicken breast here, which I've been de-thawing for the last few hours. It comes in this kind of vacuum sealed wrapper because they're frozen. You buy them in like a bag of a bunch of chicken breasts. I'm not going to eat it because this is a test, but what I thought I'd do is defrost it, kind of smash this down because it's pretty thick, kind of flatten it out as much as possible, and try cooking it in this bag. I've seen people do eggs and things like that, but you know, that's not really a meal, and you're not going to really use this in an emergency to cook the minimum amount of food. You want to make the most out of it as possible. What I'm concerned about is the heat here probably is enough to cook a chicken breast, but I don't know that the heating time or the amount of time that it'll stay hot enough is enough to cook a chicken breast. It's probably not super fair because this is pretty thick. It's probably over an inch thick at its maximum. But we will cut it open and see if it is edible at all. The other thing that I want to throw out here is that it can be a little tough as far as I know, and if you have good ideas on how to cook things in here, you could certainly, it seems like it's big enough, you could put a can of soup in here, maybe rip off the label, put the whole can in there. And so if you have canned food, you could potentially cook it in here. The key is, and my issue and the problem I'm looking to solve is that you can't have the food be in direct contact with the water. I don't think putting the food in a Ziploc bag is good enough, in my opinion. This might be okay because it's completely vacuum sealed all the way around. This is okay because this has been vacuum sealed. A can of soup or a can of tuna, except that's already cooked. Those types of things might work. But I'm not sure what else. What other food items come completely sealed that you can put in there and that can be cooked in the packaging that it comes in. So that's kind of a tricky situation, I think. But let's try it out. So, all right, first things first, I'm going to take out the heating element here, open that sucker up. It looks just like a hand warmer, which is kind of effectively the same philosophy. The instructions say you're going to put 3 to 4 ounces of water. There is a line right here, fill to the line only. So I'm going to go ahead and stand this up. Fill to the line, perfect. And now I'm going to put my chicken breast in there. I'm going to put it down as far towards the bottom as I possibly can. Put it right up against that heating element. I'm going to try to push it down, kind of to get it towards, try to even get it sideways on the bottom. I can feel that heating element already starting to heat up. It's not hot by any means, but I can certainly feel it warming up. Okay, and so now I'm going to, oh, there it goes. Holy crap. Wow. Okay, first things first. Holy smokes. Let me just say, my advice to you, having used this now, is that I would put the food in there with the heating element and then pour the water in it. Because once the water For some reason, once the activation happens, it flash boils, man. Holy smokes, I was kind of unprepared for that. And just because I was kind of dumb. So you should put the food in, put the heater and the food in, get everything situated, pour the water in, and seal that sucker up because you probably have whatever it was, 10 or 20 seconds before the sucker's going to really start cooking. You can see, man, it is just venting right out of both of these holes on either side here. So it is cooking, and the steam is hot, which steam by nature is hot. So there it is. The sucker opens up pretty big, man. Like I said, a pretty big bag. You may want to be able to brace it up against a rock or something like that, but I'm going to let this sucker cook until we have no more steam coming out, and we'll check the chicken and see if it's edible. Okay, guys, I think it's about done, or it's run its course. It is still very hot. It's not venting steam anymore. I actually have left this here for now 17 minutes. So I noticed that after 12 minutes, it wasn't venting steam as much. There was a little bit of a trickle, but I touched it and it was still really, really hot. So I left it for about another 5 minutes, and that's where we're at. It is still very hot, as you would kind of expect it to be, but I thought we might give it a chance to look at what the chicken looks like. The two things that I will mention that I kind of figured out as I did this. Whatever side the heating element is on, so if the heating element is on this side, you want to put the heating element down. I noticed that when I rotated it, put it to the other side, and the water drains to the other side, it needs to be in constant contact with whatever's water in there to keep going. So I flipped it over, and then you could immediately see the steam kind of throttle back, and when I flipped it back over, it kind of roared up again. So just keeping in mind that you want the heating element down to be submerged in the water. I'll go ahead and open this sucker up, and like I said, it's still really hot. I just expect there'll still be water. The bag is pretty wet. All right, there's the element itself, which is now kind of swollen, as you can see. So that does what it does, I guess. And I can tell you too, man, it's kind of funny. Kind of looks like a large tea bag, but there's no discoloration. But it is kind of hard. So as that heating element cooks off, it basically kind of gets too big. The chicken, clearly, which was a raw chicken breast before, is cooked. I certainly wouldn't serve this at Alinea or anything like that, I'm sure. But I'm going to cut it open. And now, again, I have some philosophical problems about cooking in plastic because I'm always a little worried about kind of plastic stuff leaching into food. In a survival situation, I'm sure you won't. Doesn't really matter. You'll do whatever you need to do. But like I said, if you can find things like this that are already packaged in kind of the cooking container and things that are more foil-based, I am a big fan of that. In fact, these plastic wrappings that these come in are, I think you're only supposed to use them for defrosting. You're just supposed to leave the chicken in there to defrost and then discard it right away. All right, finally got it out of that bag, man. It's still pretty hot. As you can see, it is cooked here. The key is it cooked all the way through? The answer is a resounding no. There is definitely cooked chicken, and I'm actually, I guess, impressed. Like I said, this is definitely more than an inch thick. I mean, you can see I've got a pretty long fork here, and that sucker goes right up to there. So, but there is definitely raw chicken in there. So to cook a chicken breast is going to take more than one sitting in one of these One Source bags. If you were to throw it into another one and cook it again, I actually don't doubt that 2 of these bags would actually be enough to cook this chicken breast. So you actually can cook in it. But you got to keep in mind that it's kind of more like steaming than it is like boiling, I guess. This chicken breast in 15 minutes of boiling water would probably be cooked. but not kind of in the half boil, half steam bag that this is. That being said, I can tell you my experience was this sucker got hot. Man, it did. This One Source hot meal bag is definitely like these mil-spec heaters, but on steroids. And my caution to you is that I was a little surprised how quickly they flash up. If you've used a lot of these before, maybe you're not that surprised, but keep that in mind. But they're big, they're fairly cheap. You can buy them without having to buy, in bulk like this, without having to buy the MREs themselves. So that gives you the flexibility to kind of build your own MREs. And I love the fact that clearly I just use regular water. It does not require a saline solution at all to fire these suckers up. So pretty impressed with these. Not going to eat that chicken, but I definitely would recommend having a supply of these if you're in the prepper survival world and want to be able to cook something with just a little water in a plastic bag. Peter von Panda for the One Source Hot Meal Individual Flameless Ration Heaters. Out!